Madam Clerk, item number,
4.
what is it? 4.
Yeah. Item number 4 is a hearing to consider appointing one member, term ending January 1st, 2019, to the Elections Commission. There is one vacant seat and 2 applicants.
Okay, there are 2 applicants. So applicant number 1, Dominic Ryan Paris, would you come up?
Good afternoon. Do you have any starting questions, or should I just go into my short little spiel? Would you still have faith in our American democracy if your vote didn't count? This is actually the question that got me interested in elections and voting during 2000. We all know what happened in Florida, but what really isn't known is that 4 to 6 million votes were lost during that election, not due to fraud or anything, but just plain old mistakes. This sadly makes the United States rank 26th out of 73 countries as far as electoral integrity. Should you choose to appoint me, electoral integrity is my top priority for serving on the Elections Commission. I have a proficient knowledge of voting systems and as well as electoral good processes, best practices. I've done this through working through the Center for Election Science, helping small organizations adopt better voting systems and use better practices. I've also have my second public policy master's is focused on elections and voting, an emphasis in comparative public policy, which really has helped as I have worked 4 elections in 3 separate jurisdictions in 2 different states, plus an on-site review in Puerto Rico. That being said, I have worked in capacities ranging from the lowest level poll worker all the way to full-time election staff. That includes clerk, judge, inspector, poll worker, trainer, ride-along coordinator, field tech, and office staff, which ranges in duties from redrawing precincts to processing early registration voters. So, as I said before, my primary goal is to make sure that an election integrity maintains. Just yesterday, a federal court ruling paves the way for oppressive voter ID laws in both Arizona and Kansas. So the threat to our elections is real. San Francisco and California are both pretty clean, but we do need to maintain our vigilance to make sure there are no threats to our city and county. Any questions?
Supervisor Tang?
So I will just ask this of all candidates, but if you could speak to some of the goals that you have if you were to serve on this commission.
Yes, thank you. Integrity is a very general goal, but it is the #1 priority. If any outside influences do try to threaten the electoral integrity, I do think that it is our duty, or my personal goal, to fight it. Any oppressive voter ID laws is a perfect example. More specifically, containing within the Election Commission, I really want to work on poll worker training. We already do have a very good program, but they are our frontline defense and are essentially judge, jury, and executioner on Election Day. There are thousands of them, and yet only a few dozen full-time electoral staff. They need better training. They're doing a good job, but we can always use more. And if maybe you throw some money our way, knock, knock, I would love to create a poll-mobile, an idea I stole from San Mateo County, that would be used for voter outreach and education during the off-season, and during elections could be used to drive as an emergency polling place, provided a location isn't open, the owner doesn't open up, there's inclement weather and the roof has collapsed, whatever it happens to be. That would be quite excellent. And provided the supervisors give us the scope, perhaps even lobby our state assemblymen and senators for better election laws. Just a little sprucing.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Thank you for your consideration.
Okay. Next applicant is Christopher Jerdonek.
Supervisor E, Supervisor Campos, and Supervisor Tang. My name is Chris Jerdonek. As you know, I'm applying for the Elections Commission. Thank you for considering me. To give you some background about myself, I've lived in San Francisco for over 8 years, first in District 9 and then in District 8. I received a PhD in mathematics from UC Davis in 2005 and moved to San Francisco shortly after that. In 2007, I started working as a software developer for a company called Granicus, which I believe you're all familiar with. They specialize in government transparency and expanding citizen access to government information. For example, San Francisco uses Granicus to stream their government meetings. I worked there for 6.5 years until last November to start working on my own software idea. I've also been active in the open source software community throughout that time. In addition to my software work, I've been active in election and voting integrity issues for over 10 years. While living in Davis, I advised a city-appointed body called the Davis Governance Task Force and was recommended by them for my valuable contributions on election issues. In San Francisco, I've been a polling place inspector 12 times, starting in the June 2006 election. I've attended many Elections Commission meetings over these years here. I estimate over a dozen. I have provided advice to the Commission on things like how we can improve our manual audits and how we can improve the reporting of our ranked choice voting results. I've also observed the post-election procedures on multiple occasions in San Francisco, and I've written software to analyze San Francisco's ranked choice voting data. San Francisco is very fortunate to have an independent citizen body to oversee the administration of its elections. I would like to give back to San Francisco by serving on this body, making sure we stay abreast of current technologies, and making sure we have good elections overall. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Tang?
Sure, I'll just ask the same question I asked of the previous candidate, but if you were to serve on the commission, what are some of the goals that you'd like to achieve?
Well, in addition to making sure that elections run smoothly overall, I'd like to make sure we maintain good relationship with the Secretary of State's office, and also I'd like to make sure that we continue to improve our audit procedures and reporting procedures. But most importantly, I think, as we all know, the equipment that we use in San Francisco is getting very old, and I think our contract may be up in a couple years. So I want to be very sure that we spend, if we need to spend more money, we spend that wisely. And because we have a very unique situation in San Francisco with respect to ranked choice voting, we want to make sure that any new equipment that we get has all the capabilities we need, and that there are no issues with the certification process at the state and federal levels.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any public comments on this item? Come on up.
Good afternoon, honorable supervisors.
Time's up.
Wow.
Thank you.
Well, I will try and make my comments maybe a little longer, but brief anyway. So my name is Roger Donaldson. I'm a resident of San Francisco. I'm here to speak on in support of Chris Jerdonek's appointment to this seat. I also sent a letter in that you may have received. My credentials, just to establish sort of some background here, is I started working in election protection in 2004. I've worked 9 times on elections here in the Department of Elections as an elections deputy as well as an inspector. I served on the San Francisco Voting Systems Task Force, which was completed in 2011, appointed by the Board of Supervisors. And I continue to work on voting system and voting integrity issues personally. So about 10 years ago is when I started getting involved with this. I met Chris at an Elections Commission meeting in around 2005, so I've known him for 10 years. We were there for different reasons, but over time we got to know each other and actually sort of learned from one another. And in that time, I observed somebody who's very considerate. He had a lot of good comments and input to the Election Commission, and his information that he provided was well thought out and very well researched. In terms of where the Elections Commission is at, you know, the EC was, of course, created due to some poor election management and election issues. Over the time, we've had John Arntz for most of that period, and he's proved to be a very capable administrator. He's also very trusted and has proved to be very good at executing elections. However, in the next few years, we're going to be looking at getting new voting equipment, as well as things like internet voting is going to be a threat to our current hard card voting, and And so we need somebody on there to replace the current veterans. Gerard Gleason, who's leaving the seat, who had been there for 10 years, was an advocate for the people of San Francisco. A number of the other newer people, I think, are used to John Arntz and how he executes elections and don't think there are problems to be solved. I think that Chris understands the issues.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Rebello, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Dominic Paris's candidacy. I've known Dominic for about 6 years here in San Francisco, and while you've all been able to get an idea from his speaking and from his application material, his academic qualifications, his hands-on experience administering elections, I thought I would be able to share some insight into kind of Dominic in action and Dominic, you know, the citizen worker. He and I both belong to a running club here in San Francisco, where he has been the executive director of our annual fundraising race, where we raise money for local charities. While it may seem like I'm drawing a line to get from there to elections, what I can tell you is, as executive director of this race, Dominic has had to supervise and train a wide variety of volunteers, people of varying competencies and experience. He's had to coordinate them well in advance of a big day, which the calendar is counting down, not unlike an election. He's had to roll up his sleeves. He's had to show up early, often in the pre-dawn hours, to make sure that everything is up and running correctly, check in with a variety of people in different locations, and see to it that execution is done as flawlessly as possible, because when it comes to race day or election day, you really only get one chance to do it right. So in addition to the master's degree, the work on elections, I know him as a very dedicated member of the San Francisco community. He's been actively involved in a variety of nonprofits and charities, and I've seen him as an organizer, a coordinator, and importantly, I think, which every community needs, a voter advocate, not someone who's only going to look at it from the perspective of managing the election and the process, but is going to come into meetings with the interests of the voter in mind, wanting them to have access and make sure that their voices are heard and that they have confidence and faith in the system. Not simply that it works, but that people understand that it works and that they believe in it and want to come and cast their votes. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Gerard Gleason. I'm the person who vacated the seat that you're looking to fill. I wrote a letter to you, but I just wanted to come down here. As I said, I took this position seriously. I missed 2 meetings in 10 years. That was over 130 meetings. I just wanted to come down and, again, endorse the idea of having Chris Jerdonek appointed to the Elections Commission. Chris is somebody who's come to more than a dozen meetings. He's given useful and important information to the Election Commission. But what I want to stress, more important than that, is a lot of people come to public meetings and give input and things like that. He stepped up to the plate more than a dozen times to be a poll worker. And I do that too. And I think that's really important, is you can give input, but when you get out there and actually see how the service to the voters works, I just think that that's a really important thing to consider. As I mentioned, I work for the Department of Elections. I handle the ballot production and the voter information pamphlet. I thought I knew inside baseball on elections, but I'll tell you, the last 9 elections I worked at Sutro School at the polling place, I've learned more sitting there and seeing the voters come to me. And I think that's what Chris brings to this too. I think there's the issue of the macro and the micro here, and I think Chris really adds to that, so I'd really appreciate it if you consider his application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Darlene Hall, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Dominic Paris's nomination to the committee. I've known Dominic also for about 6-7 years, and I'm also in the same running club. But one of the things that I know is that I'm a psychologist. My expertise is not voting and elections, and he has educated me on a lot of these voting systems and ways of approaching voting and elections, and has taught me a lot of things that I don't know, because his passion and commitment to these issues is deep. Everything from our running club to more formal work around working in these different elections and districts, as well as I was one of the people that he actually talked to about the pros and cons of going into his master's program that would actually help to support the formal side of learning about all of this work to, what I would say, kind of back up the work that he does on the ground. And I've definitely seen his commitment and his passion, and I'm also someone that is also very active in a kind of grassroots level in San Francisco, both personally as well as through my work. And I've seen the same passion and dedication through him around trying to really help support systems around voting in elections and to make them as strong as they can possibly be. And, he's, a few years younger than I am, actually a little bit more than that. And I think one of the things that he can also bring to the committee is a connection with young people and newer technologies and other things that may also be coming down the line in terms of what may, the changes that may be happening around voting in elections. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Supervisor Tang?
Thank you. I want to thank all the candidates for expressing your interest in serving on Elections Commission. It certainly is a very important body here in San Francisco, and I think that we have seen no shortage of enthusiasm from both candidates. Today, I will say that I would like to support the applicant Chris Jerdonek for this commission. We crossed paths 10 years ago, and I credit him for explaining to me technically how ranked choice voting works, and an even more complicated system than here in San Francisco. Also, I think that when you look at the spread of the Elections Commission, I do believe that he really brings forth technical expertise that is really important. Mr. Gleason, in his letter to us, also stated that, it's really, there's a differentiation between elections campaigns and policy versus the actual administration of elections. And I think that that's really important and something that I do believe that Mr. Jerdonek would be able to bring to the commission. So with that, I'd like to hear from colleagues, but that is who I'd like to support for the commission.
Okay. Supervisor Campos?
Thank you. Let me begin by thanking Commissioner Gerard Gleason for his service. I know that serving on this kind of commission is not easy, huge time commitment, and when someone takes it as seriously as you have taken it, I think that we have to recognize that. And on behalf of the people that I represent in District 9, we appreciate that commitment and that dedication. And so thank you very much for your service, and thank you for being here. This is a hard one for me because I think that both candidates are pretty impressive, and I think that they each bring something unique to the table. And I was prepared to come here and support either one of them, and I certainly was very impressed with Mr. Parris's presentation and his commitment and knowledge of elections, and I think that he would do a good job on the Elections Commission. That said, I'm not going to oppose the nomination of Mr. Jerdonek because I also know that he brings a lot to the table as well. So, and I know we heard from a lot of people on both sides who have a lot of respect for each candidate. So with that, I will support the motion as well.
Okay. This one is even harder than the last one. Both of you, I have to really say both of you are well qualified to be on this. I kept on flipping back and forth, even though I read, your application. And, oh my God, everybody's so equal here. And what I do like is with Christopher Jerdonek is I think what he's going to be bringing in onto this commission, as he mentioned about the equipment being old and needing to replacement, that he seems to have actually both of them, but he seems to have analytical skills to understand what kind of equipment might actually make some sense for our election process. So I don't know if you actually made a motion.
All right. Well, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Christopher Jerdonek to the Elections Commission.
Okay. With no objection, then motion passes. Thank you very much. Congratulations. And please consider Mr. Parris to come back. You are a very qualified person, and we would like to see you on the commission one day. Okay. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, item number 5.